Good afternoon. So today we'll be looking at the art element texture. Texture is the surface quality of an object that we sense through touch. All objects have a physical texture. Artists can also convey texture visually in two dimensions. Textures may be actual or simulated. Actual textures can be felt with the fingers, while simulated textures are suggested by an artist in the painting of different areas of a picture, often in representing drapery, metals, rocks, and hair, among other things. In a two-dimensional work of art, texture gives a visual sense of how an object depicted would feel in real life if touched. Hard, soft, rough, smooth, hairy, leathery, sharp. Artists use colour, line, and shading to imply textures. In three-dimensional works, artists use actual texture to add a tactile quality to the work. The categories of texture are real texture, the actual texture of an object. An artist may create real texture in art to give it visual interest or evoke a feeling. Also, there is implied texture, where a two-dimensional piece of art is made to look like a certain texture, but in fact is just a smooth piece of paper. In the first slide here, we see material pressed into a piece of clay. This is actual texture pressed into clay. In Van Gogh's A Wheat Field with Cypresses painting, we can see an example of implied texture. Van Gogh is using a two-dimensional piece of art to look like a wheat field of cypresses. It gives a visual sense of how the field depicted would feel in real life if touched, using colour and lines and shading to imply the texture. Other examples of creating actual texture in clay by pressing things into it can be pressing Twizzlers to give this impression here. You can change the direction or create a pattern with these textures. Another way to add texture to clay is to use tools like a fork to drag into the clay, creating a rough kind of texture. This ceramic tile here I made. It's a piece of clay showing different kinds of actual textures all pressed in using a magnet, Lego, and jewellery, transferring those surface qualities onto the clay, leaving interesting textural impressions. You can explore ideas in this way with clay by exploring how to apply texture. I also added some texture on by pressing different colour clay in swirls and dots onto the tile. So another example here of adding things onto clay that give an actual texture are these different extrusions here. I used an extruder tool where you put a cylinder of clay into an extruder tool and push the clay through tiny holes of different sizes at the top, and different kinds of lines will come out. These are some examples. So you might use this tool to create a hairy-like texture. Rina Peleg is a modern ceramic artist from Israel that incorporates texture greatly in her work. In her first piece here, Raw Earth, we can see this circular-shaped ceramic weaved ball. The weaving gives a fantastic real texture to the piece and is visually stimulating. In Remnants 2 by Rina, we can see all different kinds of shapes layered over each other in a pile, all with holes in it. This is another example of an idea to explore texturally in clay. In this piece here, the American flag itself is a weaved ceramic form. The weaved texture in patterns and varied horizontal and vertical directions make this piece visually interesting, and also the stars on the flag pop up from the weaves and give an extra form of texture to this piece. This piece, Brown Art, looks very realistic even though it's made from clay. The folding of the clay create a ruffled up actual texture, which makes it more interesting, and also once again the weave texture that comes into strands at the end, making it look real, as though it were made from material. So to sum up what we've gone over here, we were looking at texture and the different kinds of texture. The actual and implied texture. We looked at different kinds of textures you can press into clay, and also the kinds you can add onto clay. And finally, at an artist's work, Rina Peleg, and her textural ceramic forms and how she uses texture in her pieces. She explores surface quality in an interesting way in her work.